going on, guys? So another Doctor Who episode has come and went, and this episode got a little racist. Not the show itself did anything racist, but we went back in time. Bill, being a person of color, it was only, logical, I think, that she would have to deal with a little bit of racism and everything. And she called it out right in this episode when she stepped out. She was like, 18-something. She's like, slavery's still a thing. And the Doctor was like, oh, yeah. Like, 'cause obviously he has nothing to do with that. But, he told her that he finally informed her about the wardrobe and all that jazz. And, she can get dressed up. But this is what I really love about time travel shows. And, I mean, I'm a person that actually really enjoys history, but I'm not like a history buff where I could be like, oh yeah, on this date, this event happened. But I do enjoy, like, if somebody gave me a history book and be like, oh shit, this happened, that happened. Like, I'm that kind of person. I just like to know about events, but not to be a pro about these events. And I think like time travel shows like freaking Doctor Who, which is probably why it's one of my favorite shows, I love that they just deal with these kind of events. Now, of course, they're not factual or anything. They'll have like little itty-bitty parts of facts or characters from that time period, but they're not factual things. But they do deal with real-life things, and racism is one huge thing. And if you've watched Legends of Tomorrow, they did that in that one too, with companions or characters of color. They're gonna deal with that stuff going back in time. And if you saw the Legends of Tomorrow episode where they went back to, I forgot what time period it was, but it was like the Civil War, and the racism was really racist on that episode. But in this episode, we got to see just how freaking slave owners just dealt with shit. And man, like flat out telling Bill, like, who let this creature in here? Like, not even, oh man, it sucks. And I think that's why I love these history shows, because it shows you that no matter how much we've progressed in the world and we've got, with technology and everything, it's still, these kind of things remind you we haven't really progressed too much in humanity, because, this kind of stuff still happens today, and it kind of blows your mind. Also, quickly, loved the whole little joke that the Doctor made about Jesus being whitewashed. I thought that was pretty funny. But anyways, moving on with the episode itself, there were a lot of things, Bill learned how to, what's gonna happen if you go around with the Doctor. Of course, we got what every companion does, asking the Doctor, like, have you killed people? Do you let people die? Etc. Like, a lot of the same things that you go through with each companion, but it's always done in a different way. And all of that came up because of the little trickster kids that went around and tried to steal from the Doctor and Bill. They took his screwdriver, and then we saw that the little kid actually gets sucked up by the big monster under the river. Now, I'm just gonna point out that, Bill got a little, she's like, help him, whatever, and I would have been like, he stole my screwdriver, like, what the hell, like, why should I help this dude? Kids know better, although technically, those kids had nothing, so I can see why they were stealing, but still, that's my screwdriver! Sonic screwdriver, my bad, but still, like, I don't know, and it's always funny, too, when, I don't know how I would react, personally, but I feel like I know how I want to react. If like somebody steals your screwdriver and you grab their hands and they're like that, how do you not go, BAM! I feel like that would have been my first reaction, but the Doctor was like, what are you doing? And he had more crazy self-control than I think I would have been, because I would have been like, that's my screwdriver, bitch! So with the little kid getting sucked under the ice and getting eaten, that's Bill's first death, she says. She's never seen a death. But, the Doctor quickly points out, he was like, we were just in a garden with a whole bunch of dead people. Like, what? Of course, Bill's saying that she's never seen somebody die. Those people were already dead. And, and that makes her start questioning, like, how do you not care? Like, how do you move on so quickly after somebody just died? Because, remember, Bill is a human, opposed to the Doctor, who's a Time Lord. And then, we automatically, as humans, just, if you care for something, or you have some compassion, unlike the racist, slave owner guy that we saw in this episode, you usually feel bad when something happens to somebody, even if you have no connection to them whatsoever, just because it's a human emotion. You just feel bad. So we saw that happening with Bill, and she asked those questions to the Doctor, like, how do you do that? Like, have you never saved somebody? Like, how many people have you not saved, and how many people have you killed? And the Doctor just says, he's like, I'm 2,000 years old, like, I've learned to move on. He's like, because if I don't move on, how many other people will die if I don't? Which are super valid questions, and I think that's why I like this show so much, because the doctor constantly has to ask himself those kind of questions, and if he doesn't do anything in those split decisions, other people could die by not doing it. Like, if you choose to do like one thing, there's always consequences. Like, and that's what revolves around this show all the time. You can not do anything and just let something play out and try to save a little bit of people, or you can do something that has a huge risk but might save millions in the long run. And it's just a huge question that constantly gets you thinking. With this episode, we got to see the doctor and Bill at a fair, and it seems like this ice fair or whatever was actually on the lake, which is crazy. Would you guys ever, well, I guess some of you would, because you've probably skated on a frozen lake or whatever, but me, I'm from Texas. It doesn't snow here, at least not in the southern part of Texas, so I would never trust standing on frozen ice, because it just, and you know, I'm not the best swimmer in the world. I can swim, but I feel like the moment I hit cold water, I'm gonna be like, blah, 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 and I just don't want to take my chances. I don't want to be in the middle of a freaking ice thing, and then whoosh, I'm donezo. So when I see people celebrating a fair on some freaking frozen ice, I'm like, During this fair, we got to see some interesting things, like the WWE has still been around for a really long time. You got people suplexing each other and crap. You had the little trickster kids that were going around and, you know, stealing from everybody, as we saw with stealing from the doctor in that whole area. After the doctor did all of that, we got to see him be a magician because he was freaking pulling stolen food out of his hat and giving it to the kids. Although I absolutely loved that the whole damn episode, he kept asking the cheater guy that he stole all that food from how to do the coin trick. Like, that was the one, I thought that coin trick was going to be something like huge, because the doctor always does stuff like that. He always just cancels in on one thing. Like, if you remember when we got first introduced to Clara, and it was the Matt Smith era, he was all like, wait, how do you get the milk? In regards to her making souffle, he would just constantly ask, like, how do you get the milk? Because she was trapped in a freaking Dalek planet or whatever, there was no way she was going to be able to get milk for her souffles. But I always, like, every time I hear something like that, and he keeps repeating something, I'm like, that's going to be something big. And he actually kind of did, because he eventually, I guess he learned the trick from the guy, because he freaking tricks Nordal or whatever at the end of the episode to leave him alone with the freaking coin trick. I'm always paying attention to those kind of things when it comes to Doctor Who, because he doesn't repeat himself many times unless it's something important. We also got a taste of hipster Doctor trying to be all hip and cool for the kids, and we got to hear more sci-fi tales from Bill, because she kept asking the Doctor about, you know, if I step on a butterfly, does that change, like, me being existent? And that's what I love about her character. I know I've repeated it in my Doctor Who episodes, but I love that she is taking the sci-fi that we know as people, and the Doctor's just kind of just playing around with it, because it's not true. He's like, you don't know anything about sci-fi. You're just going off of whatever's made on Earth. And he's literally making jokes about it. He's all like, yes, if you do, you stepped on that, and now Pete's gone. Pete was here. You know, he's probably mad. She was like, who's Pete? He's like, there, you already forgot him. I love that the Doctor has a sense of humor when it comes to just hearing ridiculous stuff, which I think the kind of, you know, more of us in the world should have. You know, somebody doesn't get something that you know about and just make a joke about it. Don't be an ass about it, but, you know, I think there just needs to be a little bit more humor in the world, and I just thought that was hilarious. Moving on to the mystery of this episode, we know that there was a big monster fish living under the river, and it was producing this kind of like mud oil or whatever it was, and the super racist dude was using that to burn, or to use his coal. Like, he was using that more instead of coal, and that was making his fortune and keeping his fortune going and all that jazz. And apparently his family has been doing this for a really long time, because he said it's been a family secret since, you know, records were being even kept. So that means this monster's been down there for a really long time. Of course, the Doctor wants to help out this monster. Bill's like, man, you know, I just felt something that was wrong with that monster. And it reminded me of the whole second episode of the Matt Smith era, where they go to space and he actually tries to save the whale, space whale or whatever, where New York City, or I should say Britain, is on top of a whole whale. And it reminded me a lot of that, because it's you know, this freaking animal is just being like, it's just so upset or whatever, it's being captured, it's held in captivity, and the Doctor's got to make a hard question, or a hard decision on this whole thing. And that's kind of what I felt with this episode, although the Doctor said that he's not going to make the decision, it's Bill's decision, and she finally learns that you gotta make the hard decisions sometime. It's either risk freaking having a bunch of people killed with this whole, you know, the releasing of this monster, or letting the monster suffer for all of eternity. And of course, she makes the decision to not let the monster suffer anymore, because more than likely she felt the pain that it had, or maybe she just has a solid good heart and she's like, yeah, let's just go ahead and do it, screw the people. That's when the freaking doctor does his whole plan, releases the freaking monster, and we get to see super racist dude die. Because you know what? I don't care if it's fiction or whatever, seeing a super racist dude die makes the world a better place, in my opinion. I know some people will be like, oh, life is precious. Now, fuck you. If you're the kind of person that thinks that somebody else is beneath you and you're better than somebody else because of the color of your skin, fuck you. I have no sympathy for people like that. Also, it was kind of nice, not just because he was a racist, but he was keeping somebody or a creature captive for so long and making money off of it, and then, you know, that creature got its payback. So, you know, come on, that's poetic. We finally go back to real time, I guess if you could say that, where Nordal was, and, you know, they go back to the time where Nordal was making the... Sorry. Where he was making the tea like he said he would, basically, you know, the doctor saying he can get back in that time, they wouldn't even know. And, of course, Nordal's all pissed, and he's all like, you're not supposed to leave, blah, 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 blah. And Bill don't give a damn. She's all trying to look on her phone like, how does nobody know about this creature? The doctor shows her, you always got to look in the newspaper headlines. And it always just goes how people just don't, like, if they can't explain it, they say it's something crazy or they don't believe it. Which is insane, because that could be a metaphor for, like, religion. We're not going to get into that talk. But, you know, people can't prove it, so they're like, that's not real, can't do it. So, you know, maybe this whole creature thing, it's all like, oh yeah, no, there's no way we can prove that that was a thing. There's nothing behind it. Bada bing, bada boom. Had to have been fake. Everybody was drinking that day. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a bunch of different, like, scenarios or topics we can put that together. But it seems like that's a very human nature. If we can't explain something, we kind of just put it to the side and ignore it. And it's just like, oh yeah, that didn't really happen. And then you just talk about everything else that happened, which, you know, the doctor changed history to actually make those kids, or that one kid, the owner and heir of that whole estate that the freaking racist dude was about. So, you know, the kids got to be taken care of that whole time, which is awesome, because that's something the doctor always does. And, you know, I never get tired of that. I never get tired of a good guy making the world a better place. And after all of that, and Nordal being all mad at the doctor, and he goes down to the box, we hear something interesting, because I want to know what the hell is in that box, and did we finally get our first clue to what it could be? Because this freaking thing started knocking, and Nordal was like, is that a thing? Does he know? And he starts talking to it, or whatever it is, it, him, she, whatever it could be, and saying how even though the doctor's starting to leave, he's going to be there, and he's not going to let anything out of that box. But I just want to point out, we do have one character from the past that dealt with knocking, or I should say drumming. Could it be that the freaking master, or maybe Missy, is in that box? Because remember, that is, you know, that's what it's been made to be, that Missy, or the master, morphed into, or I'd say regenerated into Misty, and, or Missy, I say Misty, I'm thinking about Pokemon. Missy. And, yeah, so is it possible that the master could be the thing in that box? I'm just throwing it out there, because if you go back and listen to the audio of that, there's the knocking, but there's, like, faint, like, knocking or drumming in the background between the louder knocks. And I'm just throwing it out there. That's my theory. I want to know what you, Doctor Who peeps or Whovians, think could be in that box. Also, let me know what you thought of the series. Okay, also, let me know what you thought of the season so far. How are you liking Bill? How are you liking the Doctor? All of that jazz, let me know in the comment sections down below. Guys and gals, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with all your Doctor Who buddies. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for all things nerdy and geeky on this channel. As always, I'm your host, JUICEbox. Remember, when you wake up in the morning, ask yourself something. Have I made a little dose of juice? See you guys next time. Bye!